And I had some folks that were classified a little differently than, I don't want to say I've typically seen, but just they brought up something that I, again, was not 100% sure on. And I wanted to make sure I gave them the right answer. And I was discussing, how do you calculate your retirement pension and what is involved with that? And you may or may not know, you can go through our previous episodes and view the content on when you're eligible to retire and what your retirement calculation looks like and how to walk through that pretty easy math. But this question, when I talked about high three and what goes into your high three, what counts towards your high three, and what we look at when it comes to your high three, I was asked a question that, again, sometimes I get stumped, and there's a lot of information out there that I do not know and I will not claim to know, but I learned through this process, and therefore you guys will learn through this process because I'm sharing this with you. So when it comes to your high three, if you're not familiar, that is the average of your highest 3 consecutive years of total base pay plus locality. And what they do to use that number for your pension calculation is they're going to take the highest, it's not 3 calendar years, but the highest consecutive 36-month period. So wherever that highest 36-month period is, they're going to take that amount to use towards your high three, take the average of those 3 years. And as I mentioned, it does not have to be calendar years. I've had some federal employees come up to me and say, well, I got a pay raise in January and I'm going to retire in March. And since I haven't had that salary, that pay raise for the full calendar year, it won't count towards my high three. And I have to correct them and say that is incorrect. That is not true. You don't have to have a certain salary for a full calendar year. It's not just a January to January time period. It's a 36-month period. It could be a March to a March or a June to a June, wherever your highest 3-year period is over the course of your career, base pay plus locality. They're going to take the average of those 3 years, and that'll be used for your pension calculation. That's considered your high three. Well, it's not just base pay plus locality that is added into your high three, because there are some circumstances, there are some employees out there that get some special pay, and that is also included in the high three. And we've done episodes on high three before, but this was a section, this was an employee type, a label for folks that I just was not 100% familiar with. And I'm not afraid to admit that sometimes, I get stumped and that I'm not always correct either. There have been some questions along the years, over my 12 years of working with federal employees, where I've had to go back and say, you know what, I wasn't confident in what I told you, and I just want to make sure that I'm giving you the right information. And I would go back and make sure they knew I corrected myself. I'd reach out on the phone, email, text, however I can get in touch with them and say, oh, by the way, Mr. or Mrs. Federal Employee, I just want to correct what I said. I didn't feel right about what I said. I looked it up and I just wanted to make sure I was correct. Turns out I wasn't. And here's the accurate information. Here's the correction. And people appreciate that. But that's what you have to do also. I mean, I tell folks all the time when I'm giving these seminars, when I'm giving these retirement trainings, fact check me on this stuff. Because if I'm giving you incorrect information, or if I misspoke, or if I said something that didn't seem right, look it up. If you see something different, let me know. But in this situation, I was talking about high three. Somebody raised their hand. A couple of people actually raised their hand and said, does it include this type of pay? And I said, look, I'm pretty sure, but I don't want to give you the wrong info. Let me check, because I know that for federal employees, there are certain types of pay that are not included in your high three, right? If you work overtime, typical overtime, bonuses, those are not included in your high three. The same with annual leave hours; those are not included, or night differential pay for GS employees. That's not included in there. Sunday premium pay not included in there. So there were certain things that I knew were not included in high three, and there are others that I knew were, right? And there are other things that I've talked about on this show before that are included. So I wanted to make sure I gave this person the information. Well, they were discussing a type of what turned out to be premium pay, but it was called Title V. And they said for Title V employees, and does their extra pay that they receive, is that included in their high three? And looking into it, I said, well, if you're considered, and I wasn't exactly sure, this is where, again, I'm walking you through my thought process as I'm giving a live presentation, but I just said, okay, it sounds like what you're telling me, and I was not 100% familiar with the classification of a Title V employee, but if it sounds like you're like a law enforcement officer, firefighter who gets, let's say, AUO or LEAP pay or some sort of bonus that is included in their high three, then I'm pretty sure that it is also yes, but let me check. And it turns out that the pay that they were talking about was premium pay. Their premium pay, which essentially was a percentage more on top of their total base salary for their the standby nature of their job. And these folks were EMTs. They worked for the fire department there on the particular federal installation that I was giving the trainings on. And turns out that, yes, their premium pay, the way that it was described, is included in their high three. So I want to go through it again because this was a learning experience for me where I was saying, what is included in the high three? And just make sure that you know when you get to retirement that these certain things that you have or these different ways that you get paid can be included in their high three. So the first thing, obviously, base pay plus locality, that is the main thing. For the majority of you out there, federal employees, the main sources of your high three are going to be base pay plus locality. Because that's a question I get asked a lot too. Is locality included? Absolutely. Yes. That helps with your high three. Other types that could be included, right? Other ways or other pays that could be included. I just mentioned this premium pay or this type of employee. So premium pay is included in the high three. The law enforcement pay, the AUO or the LEAP pay that they get, yes. I said some different pays are not, but if you're like a special pay, is included in there for recruitment, retention purposes, that is included in there. Environmental pay, sometimes it was known as hazardous pay. This is also included in the high three if you're in that kind of position where you're getting that type of pay. So just so you understand, what is all included. If you have a special job or a job that pays you slightly different than your regular federal employee, your regular GS employee, that you may have that included in your high three for retirement purposes. Now, it may probably also included in your calculation of your life insurance because it's based on your total base pay. So if you see that you may have some additional life insurance because your pay is a little higher in actuality than it shows on your leave and earnings statement, that can be a good thing too. But just understand if you've got the optional coverages like option B, which comes with a much higher cost over time, you may be paying more than you thought you were paying because that pay is also included in there, but you'd also have some more life insurance. So when it comes to retirement calculation and making sure you've got the right information and making sure that, everything that you're doing to prepare, but as far as the numbers are concerned, we want to know that you're using the right information and not shortchanging yourself because you're not including this extra pay that you're getting if you fall into these special provisions or these certain types of pay status where you get extra pay that is included in your high three. So I'd encourage you, go back and view our previous content that talks about how we use the high three to calculate your pension and the math equation that you can utilize. It is very simple math, but just to see what you're going to be using and what you're going to be utilizing after calculating that high three in order to get to your projected annual retirement annuity or your pension amount.